Hello, I'm Orkhan Amashov. Welcome to Context on AnewZ. As one of the most momentous and tantalizingly dramatic weeks in world politics is drawing to an end, with the fiery and unprecedented Trump-Zelensky meeting resulting in the epic collapse of the US-Ukraine talks, and Europe appearing to be completely blindsided by this, some very important developments, potentially of historic proportions, are taking place in the geography involving Turkiye and Syria, and also their neighbors. This week, on Thursday, Abdullah Öcalan, the jailed separatist leader of the PKK, an outlawed entity recognized as a terrorist organization by Turkey, the United Kingdom, the European Union, and the United States, called on the group of which he is a founding leader to lay down arms, disarm, and dissolve, with this potentially marking, if not the end, but at least the beginning of the end of what is described as a war against the Turkish state since 1984, leading to the deaths of 40,000 people. In response to this, members of the PKK issued a statement in which, whilst expressing their compliance with the call and declaring a ceasefire with Turkey, its members also stated that they hoped that Ankara would release Öcalan so that he could lead a process of disarmament himself. Well, Abdullah Öcalan's appeal to the members of his outlawed group, in a statement read out by the MPs from the DEM party, represented in the Turkish parliament, viewed as of pro-Kurdish disposition, called on the group to convene a congress and make a decision for integration with the state and society. This statement is also regarded as a call on what is referred to as a PKK Syrian wing, that is, Syrian Defense Forces, dominated by the People's Protection Unit, otherwise known as YPG, to integrate into the Syrian political system. SDF commander Mazlum Abdi, despite welcoming what he called the historic call by Abdullah Öcalan, also said that it did not apply to the group led by him, which is currently in charge of the northeastern Syria and at odds with the new government in Damascus, which has not invited this group to the National Congress. Well, quite a complicated and undeniably intricate landscape involving competing interests, both regional and external, happens to be in front of our eyes. And this picture is in need of close inspection. And this very inspection today will be carried out by my humble self, together with my distinguished guest. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Vakas Doğan Tekin, senior correspondent at Anadolu Agency English Service, joining from Ankara, Turkey. Hamdi Rifai, Government Relations Executive Director for MOC Strategies and Foreign Affairs Analyst, joining from Washington, D.C. And Brigadier General Yossi Kupavasa, Israeli intelligence and security expert from Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, joining from Jerusalem. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Mr. Doğan Tekin, let's begin our conversation with what happens to be the most important question surrounding this call. How important is this moment, and why now?
First of all, thank you for having me in your program. And I think if we read the last 10-15 years of Turkish political relations with Syria and the developments in the region, this was an inevitable conclusion, because at the moment there is a new administration in Syria that doesn't want PKK in its borders. The Mazlum Abdi group, those YPG, what they call themselves SDF, they are not invited to the National Congress because the new Syrian administration, they know the true colors of PKK-YPG, SDF, and they know that eventually they will be a problem to this new Syrian administration, just like they were a problem for Turkey for 40 years. So at the moment, I think Mazlum Abdi is trying to, get this, behave in an opportunistic way, just like they did like 10 years ago when this peace process again was taking place and it was again disrupted. And now Mazlum Abdi feels like, there is a growing relationship with Israel, and despite PKK's anti-Israel stance for years, recently, because of Turkey's support for the Palestinian movements and Palestine in general, Netanyahu, a couple of years back, said, don't support Hamas and we won't support PKK. So they are, showing this to Turkey as a deal. And Turkey, of course, is on the side of the Palestinians, and they haven't accepted the deal. So right now, I think the remnants of this PKK in Syria, they want to build a relationship with Israel, thinking that it will be sustainable, which I don't think will be sustainable, because at the end of the day, Israel, let's give it a few years, and if the relations with Israel and Turkey, get better again, Israel will definitely, choose a sovereign, a big state in the region for PKK. I mean, they won't be supporting the PKK any longer, and it will be the end of that group. So it's not going to be a sustainable relationship in the long term. But they are trying to be opportunistic at this point. And, we are not counting our chickens before they hatch. People in Turkey are cautiously optimistic. Statistically, people support this process. They want this terror problem to be left behind, because it has caused a lot of lives, it has caused a lot of money for the Turkish state, and they don't want this problem to continue forever. Neither the Turks nor the Kurds, they want an end to this problem. But of course, there's a lot of spilled blood. There's a lot of, provocations on both sides. Right now, there are, provocators who are trying to disrupt both the Turkish approach to this process and the Kurdish approach to this process. Managing this process is much more difficult than taking the decisions. In the social media especially, there are a lot of provocators who will, try to deviate this process again. So it is just a wait and see game at this moment. We don't know if it is going to be successful, but there is an intention from the Turkish state, and there is a bipartisan intention to solve this problem. The leftist parties, the opposition parties, the ruling party, even the most nationalist party in the parliament wants to end this process. So it is an olive branch extended to PKK, and if they don't respond to this in a nice way, I think Turkey is in a very strong position militarily. And even in the weakest times of Turkey, PKK hasn't achieved its goals in 1990s. And right now, with all the drone armies of Turkey and all the, the domestically produced weapons of Turkey, I don't think they are standing any chance at this moment. So I feel like they will grasp this opportunity, and especially the Turkey-centric parts of PKK will accept this deal. And Mazlumat, some other groups, of course, they are mercenaries. They will want to continue this war, and they will continue waging this war maybe, because what we know, the PKK itself was created as an enemy of Turks in the region, not only Turkey, but Azerbaijan as well, Syrian Turkmens, Iraqi Turkmens. They have not fought against Iranians. They have not fought against even the Syrians or the Arabs in the region. It is basically a tool to fight against the Turks in the region. And in 2020, Mr. Hikmet Hacıyev also said, the Armenians have deployed PKK terrorists to Upper Karabakh, and in Shusha there were, PKK mercenaries fighting on the side of Armenians. So this is very important. I mean, Armenian soldier, I think it was, we did a lot of stories about that back in the time at the Anadolu Agency. There was this guy, Albert Mikaelian, the Armenian soldier. He was captured by the Azerbaijani soldiers, and he has confessed to having, PKK soldiers on their ranks, and they were paid $600, to fight with them. So it's a mercenary group. Of course, they have.
Thank you, Mr. Doğan.
They haven't known anything other than fighting, so they will continue fighting, I think, some groups in the PKK.
So, Mr. Doğan, thank you very much indeed for a very extensive answer and for explaining the essence of the organization in question. And also you reflected on it, as you described it, very anti-Turkic heart, crux of the organization. Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Rifai, Mr. Doğan Tekin reflected on the cautious optimism prevailing in Turkiye, but still the positivity is there. So about Abdullah Öcalan's connection with Syria. Until 1999, Syria had been a safe haven for Abdullah Öcalan and for the PKK, with him being, as the statements coming from different parties suggesting that, used by Hafez al-Assad's government against Ankara, against many other actors. And today, SDF is a militant group dominated by YPG, which is, in Turkish estimation, is just the Syrian extension of the PKK. And we know that this group is backed by Americans very openly. And we know that SDF was not invited to the National Congress, and they do not see, and I'm coming to some crux of the matter, Öcalan's call as applicable to them. What are your thoughts?
I think Turkiye has a very clear basis for their cautious optimism. We've seen that the PKK, the Kurdish separatist groups generally, have a pattern and practice, a modus operandi, if you will, of changing names, rebranding, becoming different things, shifting strategies, changing people that are sponsoring them again and again. So whatever the PKK says today may not be reality tomorrow. It might just be a temporary shift in strategies to survive a moment. And we have plenty of reason to believe that. So we see the PKK, the SDF, the YPG, the SDC, the Autonomous Administration. They operate under so many different names and categories. It's almost head spinning. And we know the SDF is really just the YPG, which is the Syrian faction of the PKK. So when the YPG says we're not going to disarm and that we're going to continue fighting, then essentially what they're saying is they're going to continue attacking Turkiye, because much of the attacks against Turkiye came through tunnels under the border from Syria. So if the PKK says it's going to disarm, for me, I don't see that as having much real life impact, because the PKK and their domestic ability to conduct attacks or warfare inside of Turkiye was already largely defeated. Ocalan made the statement from jail, in fact. So, distinguishing between the PKK and the YPG, I think, is a mistake. So when we see Mazloum Abdi, who also has gone under so many different names, say that they're not going to disarm, it really tells me that the PKK isn't going to disarm.
Thank you. Mr. Kupawasa, so what is your take on what happens to be, probably impending de facto dissolution of PKK? Only its Turkish branch, not the Syrian branch. What do you make of the view maintained by SDF, by YPG, which effectively dominates SDF, that they will not disarm and it does not apply to them? How does this development look like from where you are?
Well, officially, the YPG is not a part of the PKK, and when Öcalan speaks and calls for an end for hostilities, it's not something that YPG has to take as an order from Öcalan. And they are involved in a different situation. They are not fighting Turkey directly. They have to deal with Ahmed al-Shara, that's the new leader of Syria. And unfortunately, Shara didn't invite them to the National Congress and the National Conference, and that's their problem. And he is asking them to give up their arms, and they are cautious about that. And one has to understand their position, because they understand that if they give up their arms, they might give up also their autonomy and the ability to rule over themselves. That's what they are worried about, and I understand what stands behind it. I must say that from a Turkish point of view, this is definitely should have been looked upon as a positive development, because if the PKK is giving up terror activities, it's something that is going to make life in Turkey better.
But do you think it will make life easier for everybody, Mr. Kupawasa, for everybody in the region, not just for Turkey, for PKK's dissolution? I talk about it. Do you think it will be a positive development for everybody?
Yes, I think so. It's, otherwise, Ocalan wouldn't have chosen to go in this direction if he thought it's a bad development for himself and for the Kurds.
You do not view YPG as the Syrian extension of PKK. You don't, correct?
I think has very close relations with PKK, but it's not a part of the PKK. It's the Syrian version of the Kurdish organization, and it's a Syrian organization, not a Turkish organization. That's the difference between them. They have very close relations, but they do not operate inside Turkey. They operate in Syria.
I see.
And that's the difference.
Mr. Doğantekin, do you think this difference matters a great deal? The fact that they are in Syria geographically, that's the reason why they should be seen as separate from PKK. What do you think?
No, first of all, if you look at the foundation of PKK and how it grew into other structures and its affiliates, it is very clear that YPG is completely PKK, and all the PKK members, at least most of them, when the Syrian civil war was at its peak, they were transferred to what they call Rojava, the northern Syria. And they fought against the Turkish army and all the way to Afrin. And if they were able to, conquer in their terms Afrin, they were about to create this Kurdish cantons and state. But the Turkish army did not allow that. And with 3 major military operations, Turkey has blocked the aims of PKK at that time. So saying YPG is not PKK is very unrealistic. All the experts of the region know that. It is 100% PKK. And all the Arab tribes actually in the region, they have so far protested against these demographic changings by the PKK. How those Kurdish groups are brought to Arabic towns, mostly Arab towns, and they are trying to create an image where the Kurds outnumber the Arabs. So this has been an issue for over a decade. And a lot of Arab tribes have been protesting PKK, and they don't want those YPG elements who are not Syrians in their territory. So basically, there is no difference. That is one thing. And for Öcalan and their presence in Syria, it is water under the bridge. There is no old Syria anymore, no Hafiz Assad, no Bashar Assad, and it's all gone. And there is not a state structure that will protect them any longer. And so from now on, I think YPG, yes, they might say we are still a group, we are trained, and we are ready to fight, and we have some revenue stream from certain countries, especially the US and Israel, and we can continue this war against the Turkish state, and we can still continue our survival, and but that is unrealistic. As I said, like in 1990s, Turkish economy was in shatters, and Turkish military was pretty much not very strong, and they haven't achieved their goals even in the weakest times of Turkey. At this time, either they will accept, just like Zelensky, Trump was offering to Zelensky last night, either you sign the deal or we are out. If they don't really accept this deal at the moment, I think there will be more reason. Even the Kurdish groups in PKK will say, okay, our leader is saying accept this deal, and Mazlum Abdi is just trying to play his own game, and it will just divide PKK. And for Turkey, of course, that's a good thing, even if they don't accept this in complete, essence. Still, we will be dividing our enemy. We will be enervating our enemy, and PKK will not be posing a serious threat to Turkey from now on, even if they don't completely go with the flow at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Doğantekin. Of course, this story involves both countries, Turkey, Syria, and others as well. Mr. Rifai, currently there is a new reality in Syria, and the current government is carrying out a new policy. They have not invited SDF to the National Congress. How hopeful are you that this process, which is currently underway in Syria, in relation to which many countries, including Israel and others, have some reservations, is going in the right direction? And how consequential a spoiler is SDF, and what are the forces backing them in the context of this process?
So I think there's a difference between maybe what should happen and what Syrians want to happen. So clearly Syrians don't want to tolerate the SDF, YPG, PKK in any form at all. And that's in part because they make up a very small minority of Syrians, and most Kurds do not accept them. And they've attacked Arabs, and they've attacked Syrians, and most Syrians look to Lebanon and say, we are not interested in any kind of sectarian political system or divisions where people hold power based on their ethnic heritage. They're looking for a Syria for all Syrians, where people are not discriminated against, and they distinguish between what Assad may have done with Kurds and what they've done. Because clearly Syrians are Kurds, Arabs, and many other ethnicities and makeups as well. As far as what should happen, that's a different situation. The SDF has fought against the revolutionary forces, rebel forces in many instances, taken towns, ethnically cleansed. So they've committed war crimes. And I don't think that the new Syrian government is going to tolerate that. They've been very clear about that. They've also demonstrated patience to allow them space to come down from their positions and maybe be a little bit more pragmatic. And we've seen some slow shifting towards that end, but they're also still holding on to the support from the United States and others. Currently, we see that Israel has been lobbying the US President Trump to not withdraw US troops, despite President Trump's statements that Syria should be by Syrians, for Syrians, without any foreign interference, and that Trump is against forever wars. And clearly he sees the American troops in Syria now as a forever war where they never had a clear goal and they never were fully supported in any case. So they're still holding on to that possibility that they may be able to continue that US support because Israel is lobbying for them, and they see that there's still a hope that Iran could come up with more to assist them. The fact of the matter is, if that was to happen, it would essentially be Israel and Iran on the same side helping a separatist group to just destabilize a new nation that needs nurturing after it just suffered the loss of 1 million of its people by Assad. So I think that would be very unfortunate if Israel were to continue down that path and Trump was to accept that. I think it's yet to be seen. But we also have plenty of reason to understand that Trump may accept it because he has Tulsi Gabbard there, and Tulsi Gabbard's understanding of the Middle East is really quite limited. It's all about the bogeyman of the Sunnis and Al-Qaeda, et cetera, et cetera. They don't seem to understand or distinguish between parties and people. So they throw out this counter-terror narrative that has been in existence now for 24 years, kind of sabotaging American foreign policy. And Israel does the same thing, obviously. It relies on this counter-terror narrative. I'm not sure if it'll be able to continue that in the future now that Netanyahu has got an outstanding arrest warrant and is known as Defendant Netanyahu by so many world leaders because of the indictment by the International Criminal Court. But we'll see if they continue to push that narrative of the Sunnis are terrorists and unredeemable and et cetera, et cetera. But I think that it doesn't serve Israel's interests or the United States' interests, and I'm hopeful that they will realize that shortly.
Mr. Kuperwasser, my last question is going to be addressed to you. What is the Israeli sensibility here? Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has recently demanded full demilitarization of southern Syria, adding that his country will not allow the Syrian government's military forces to operate in territory south of the Syria's capital, Damascus. Your thoughts, sir?
Yes, what we are concerned with is that the new government in Syria may support all kinds of elements that may pose a threat to Israel. And the only thing we want to make sure is that this is not happening. We want to make sure that Syria doesn't pose a security threat to Israel. And since this government had good relations with Al-Qaeda in the past, since many of the people came from Al-Qaeda, we are cautious, and we want to make sure that for the time being at least, there's going to be no deployment of forces along our borders in the south. And at the same time, we wish that Syria would be stable and make sure that Iranians are not using its territory in order to arm Hezbollah and don't use it for posing threats to Israel directly in the southern part of Syria. That's what we want to see happening, and we're also concerned about the fact that alienating parts of the society in Syria in the process of establishing a new order there is going to be not helping in building this stability. So we want to make sure that everybody is involved and everybody is included in this process.
I mean, but Hezbollah itself is being attacked by the Syrian central government. I believe there were clashes on the Lebanese-Syrian border very recently. Even there was a
Yes.
Syrian encroachment into Lebanon very briefly because of that. So would it not be fair to say that Hezbollah is your common enemy, I mean, with Syria?
Yes, I think we have a lot of common enemies, we and the new regime in Syria. I think we should use this opportunity in order to look at the possibilities and opportunities that are open now.
But
YPG
YPG is not
making
one of
sure
those.
that Iran and Hezbollah don't use Syria for their purposes against Israel. This is something that we have in common, and we can discuss this matter with the Turks and with the new government in Syria, and with the Americans. And I hope we will reach some understandings about it. That's definitely the case.
Would you say that YPG also does constitute your common enemy as well, or it's not within the same rank? It's the same rank.
YPG is not a threat to Israel. It's located far away from Israel. It's not a threat to Israel.
Remote, you see. I don't know, Mr. Rifai, have you got anything to say in relation to this? We're going to resume very shortly. Is there anything you'd like?
It's a very strange statement I'm hearing. On the one hand, Israel says they want a stable Syria as they destabilize Syria. On the one hand, they say they want peace with Syria and they don't want any Syrian troops in Syria near Israel as Israel puts troops inside of Syria, violating Syria's territorial integrity and sovereignty. It's almost laughable, the positions they take. It's nonsensical. If they wanted peace, they would act towards peace. But they act towards war. They're trying to instigate war with the new government to take territory. They have a buffer zone on a buffer zone on a buffer zone. Apparently there are no buffer zones that are sufficient to satisfy their concerns. I can't take these claims very seriously. They go against every kind of international relations norm and custom. But I guess we should expect this from a state that's committing war crimes, while saying that they're concerned about someone that has made no threats towards Israel.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, but we know its history, so we are worried about the history, not about the direct threats right now.
Yes,
We're
you
worried
have
about
lots of worries.
about the
We always
history.
understand that. When a state is committing crimes, it lives under a siege mentality of thinking they're about to be
State
attacked.
committed
You
no
always have
crimes. We are
concerns.
fighting against the
There
terror
will never
group
be any
that
satisfying of those
committing
concerns.
terror attack against us. We are defending ourselves against a terror group in Gaza, and we are defending ourselves against a terror group in Lebanon, and we are making sure that no terror group is going to be deployed along our borders in Syria.
Yet we're concerned that we have somebody that's an accused, indicted war criminal with an outstanding arrest warrant as the president next door.
Oh, of course, the people that accuse us are
We're very concerned. And you've
very
attacked us.
dubious.
You've attacked Syria. So we have more than concerns. We have actual facts and reality, sir.
With your permission, gentlemen,
we have the facts.
Allow me to finalize this conversation. I'm most grateful to all of you for this absolutely fascinating discussion involving a very complicated subject, as I said at the beginning, involving lots of interest, both regional and also external as well. Most grateful to all of you. This were Vakas Doğan Tekin, senior correspondent at Anadolu Agency English Service, joining from Ankara, Turkey. Hamdi Rifai, Government Relations Executive Director for MOS Strategies and Foreign Affairs Analyst, and Brigadier General Yossi Kupabasa, Israeli intelligence and security expert, who joined from Jerusalem. See you very soon indeed.